You think working harder than everyone else proves you belong? It doesn't. It proves you're afraid, and that fear is costing you more than you realize. Here's what you do. You over-deliver on every project. You stay late. You triple-check work that's already perfect. You volunteer for tasks no one else wants. You think this is what competence looks like. You think if you just work hard enough, long enough, thoroughly enough, eventually you'll feel like you deserve to be here. Eventually, someone will notice. Eventually, the anxiety will stop. But it doesn't stop. It gets worse. Because you're not building confidence. You're building a prison. And the bars are made of behaviors that look like strengths, but function as weaknesses. They look like dedication. They feel like survival. But they're actually signals. Signals that tell everyone around you exactly how much power you think you don't have. Let me show you what I mean. The first attitude is over-preparation. You prepare for meetings like you're defending a dissertation. You create backup slides. You rehearse answers to questions no one will ask. You research every possible angle. You think this is being thorough. You think this is being professional. It's not. It's a defense mechanism. And everyone can see it. Here's what actually happens in that room. While you're drowning them in data you memorized at midnight, your colleague walks in with 3 slides and a story. They're relaxed. They're conversational. They admit when they don't know something. And somehow, they get the approval you were desperately working for. You think they're less prepared? They're not. They're differently positioned. They've accepted that competence doesn't require perfection. They understand that authority comes from clarity, not from proving you did your homework. But you can't do that. Because if you don't have all the answers, you'll be exposed. If you don't anticipate every question, they'll realize you don't belong. So you prepare, and you prepare, and you prepare. And here's the cost. You spend hours on work that takes others minutes. You delay decisions because you need more information. You miss opportunities because you're not ready yet. But worse than that, you train people to see you as someone who needs permission, someone who seeks approval, someone who's trying really hard. And in the economy of perception, trying hard is not the same as being good. When you over-prepare, you signal uncertainty. When you over-explain, you signal insecurity. When you need everything perfect before you move, you signal that you don't trust your own judgment. The person who belongs doesn't need to prove it. They assume it, and that assumption becomes reality. The second attitude is credit deflection. Someone compliments your work. You immediately redirect. Oh, it was really a team effort. I just got lucky with the timing. Anyone could have done it. You think this is humility. You think this is being a good colleague. It's not humility. It's self-erasure. And it's teaching people not to associate you with success. Here's the system you don't see. Credit is currency. It's how people remember who delivers. It's how you get invited to bigger projects. It's how your name enters conversations when you're not in the room. When you deflect credit, you're not being modest. You're removing yourself from the narrative. Your brain tells you that accepting credit is arrogant, that it's safer to minimize, that people will like you more if you don't claim your wins. But what actually happens is different. When you consistently deflect, people stop offering. They stop noticing. They start believing your version of the story, the one where you were just lucky, just in the right place, just had help. And then they give the next opportunity to someone who owns their wins. You think the work speaks for itself. It doesn't. The person who frames the work speaks for the work. And if you won't frame it, someone else will. Usually in a way that centers them, not you. Meanwhile, you're building a reputation as someone who contributes but doesn't lead. Someone who helps but doesn't drive. Someone who's good to have around but not essential. The cruelest part? You're doing good work. Real work. Work that matters, but you're making it invisible. You're teaching people that your contributions are circumstantial, not central. And in an environment where perception shapes reality, invisible work might as well not exist. The third attitude is compulsive helping. You say yes to everything. Someone needs feedback on a draft, you'll do it. Someone needs coverage for a meeting, you're available. Someone needs help with a project that's not your responsibility, you'll make time. You think this makes you valuable, You think this is how you earn your place. It's not earning you anything. It's costing you everything. Here's what's really happening. You're trading your strategic time for tactical visibility. You're doing work that makes you feel needed in the moment but doesn't build your position long term. You're solving other people's problems while your own priorities wait. And here's the mechanism you're missing. Value in an organization isn't determined by how helpful you are. It's determined by how replaceable you are. When you're always available, always saying yes, always solving other people's problems, you become the go-to person for execution. Not for strategy, not for leadership, for support. You're making yourself useful. But useful is not the same as powerful. The person who says no protects their time. They work on things that only they can do. They build expertise that's hard to replace. They create scarcity. And scarcity drives value. You think if you help everyone, everyone will help you. But that's not how it works. When you're always giving, people stop seeing it as generous. They start seeing it as your role. They expect it. They depend on it. And when you finally need something, they're confused. Because in their mental model, you're the helper, not the person who needs help. You've trained them well. And while you're responding to requests, someone else is working on the project that gets visibility. They're building the relationship that leads to promotion. They're focusing their energy on things that compound. You're diffusing yours on things that evaporate. The fourth attitude is preemptive apology. You start emails with, "Sorry to bother you." You begin questions with, "This might be a stupid question, but..." You frame requests with, "I know you're busy." You apologize for taking up space before anyone's told you you're taking up too much. You think this is politeness. You think this is social grace. It's not. It's status negotiation, and you're negotiating yourself down. Language shapes perception. When you apologize before you've done anything wrong, you're framing yourself as an imposition. You're suggesting that your presence, your questions, your needs are inherently problematic. You're asking for permission to exist in spaces you already belong in. And people believe you. Here's the dynamic. When you diminish yourself, you give others permission to diminish you too. When you frame your contributions as interruptions, people start experiencing them that way. When you signal that you're not sure you should be here, others start wondering the same thing. You think you're being considerate, but what you're actually doing is teaching people how to treat you. You're establishing a pattern where your needs come with apologies and their needs come with expectations. Watch how other people ask for things. They don't apologize. They don't minimize. They assume their request is reasonable. They assume their time is valuable. They assume they belong in the conversation. And that assumption creates reality. Meanwhile, you're spending cognitive energy on softening your presence, on making yourself smaller, on managing other people's potential discomfort with your existence. That energy could be going toward the actual work, toward building something, toward claiming space instead of apologizing for occupying it. Every preemptive apology is a micro-withdrawal from your own authority, and those withdrawals add up, until one day you realize you're overdrawn, and you have no idea how you got here. The fifth attitude is competence hoarding. You don't share your methods. You don't document your processes. You don't teach others what you know, not because you're selfish, but because you're afraid. Afraid that if people know how you do things, they won't need you anymore. Afraid that your value is in the execution, not the thinking. Afraid that if you make yourself replaceable, you'll be replaced. So you hoard. You keep the knowledge close. You stay essential by staying silent. And it destroys you. Here's why. When you hoard competence, you trap yourself in execution. You can't move up because no one can backfill you. You can't take on new challenges because you're too busy maintaining the old ones. You become a bottleneck. And bottlenecks don't get promoted. They get worked around. The person who shares their knowledge does something different. They build leverage. They create systems. They multiply their impact through other people. They become known not for doing the work, but for knowing how the work should be done. That's a different kind of power, a scalable one. But you can't see that, because your model of value is based on scarcity. If you're the only one who can do it, you're safe. If others can do it, you're vulnerable. Except that's backwards. When you're the only one who can do something, you're not safe. You're stuck. You can't grow because growing means letting go. And letting go feels like losing the only thing that makes you matter. So you hold on, you stay in the weeds, you keep yourself necessary in ways that make you small. And while you're doing that, someone else is teaching, delegating, and building a reputation as someone who elevates others. Someone who thinks strategically, someone who's ready for more responsibility. You're optimizing for being needed. They're optimizing for being trusted. And trust scales. Need doesn't. Here's what all 5 of these attitudes have in common. They look like professionalism. They feel like safety. But they're actually symptoms of a deeper belief. The belief that you have to earn what others assume they deserve. And that belief is a trap. Because the more you try to prove you belong, the more you signal that you're not sure. The harder you work to be perfect, the more you reveal your fear of being exposed. The more you apologize, minimize, and deflect, the more you teach people to see you the way you secretly see yourself, as someone who doesn't quite belong. But here's the thing, belonging isn't something you earn through performance. It's something you claim through presence. The people who succeed aren't working twice as hard. They're working differently. They're not trying to prove themselves. They're assuming themselves. They make mistakes and move on. They take credit without guilt. They say no without apology. They share what they know without fear. They're not smarter than you. They're not more talented. They're just operating from a different assumption, the assumption that they belong. And until you adopt that assumption, every behavior you think is protecting you is actually limiting you. Every safety mechanism is a ceiling. Every defensive habit is a signal you can't afford to send. You don't have an imposter syndrome problem. You have a perception management problem. You're managing the wrong thing. You're trying to control how hard you work, how much you prepare, how humble you appear. But none of that matters if you're invisible, if you're replaceable, if you're stuck. The person who moves forward isn't the one who works the hardest. It's the one who's hardest to ignore. And you've been making yourself very easy to ignore. So here's the shift. Stop trying to prove you belong. Start acting like you already do. Stop over-preparing. Start trusting your judgment. Stop deflecting credit. Start owning your wins. Stop saying yes to everything. Start protecting your strategic time. Stop apologizing for existing. Start assuming you're supposed to be here. Stop hoarding what you know. Start building leverage through others. It won't feel natural. It'll feel arrogant. It'll feel risky. It'll feel like you're faking it. Good. That discomfort is the gap between who you've been and who you need to become. And the only way across is through. The problem isn't that you're not good enough. It's that you've been trying to prove it in ways that make you smaller. You've been succeeding at the wrong game, working hard at being harmless, perfecting the art of not taking up space. And the cost isn't just your career, it's your time, your energy, your potential, all spent on a strategy that was never going to work. Because you can't earn belonging by disappearing. You can't prove your value by minimizing it. You can't lead from a position of apology. The game you're playing is rigged, and the only way to win is to stop playing it. You were never an imposter. You were just acting like one, and everyone believed the performance.